Happy New Year's if you're watching this as it uploads. If not, still, this is the first episode of Post-Millennial with Cameron Langley. Now let me give you a little bit of explanation on the show. The reason I chose to do this show is because I wanted to do a talk show, but I didn't exactly know what to set it on, like what to theme it, because though talk shows don't really have a theme, I almost feel like some of them always kind of do. And so I thought about it, and I thought about how my age really makes an impact, and the fact that I was born in 2001, after the turn of the century, the turn of the millennium. So I'm a post-millennial, and because of that, I've grown up with a different world than a lot of people did, and so I have a different mindset. And so I thought that, having that fresh perspective, especially in the year 2019 when we're turning 18, especially when there's a war that's still going on that started when we were babies, that is still going on, that we can now fight in. Our perspective was needed, and so that's why I'm doing this show. Um, in this show we're gonna go over, a big topic. I'm gonna go over, data and statistics that I've looked up, certain news articles, and we'll talk about certain, priorities and activist things that I'm doing. So I want to get to a brief personal introduction and tell you a little bit about myself before I lay out the show segments, and we'll start getting into what I've scheduled for our first episode. So, my name is Cameron Alexander Langley. I live in Coos Bay, Oregon. It's a beautiful state. I've only lived here since 2017. Matter of fact, May 2017 was when I moved here. I spent the first 16 years of my life in Ohio, in the Midwest, Southwest Ohio. Kind of just moving around between big cities along, I-71, 675, and 75. Back down, we moved from Cincinnati to Wilmington, from Wilmington to Yellow Springs, from Yellow Springs to Dayton, from Dayton to Trotwood, from Trotwood to Trenton, from Trenton to Middletown, and Middletown was the last place we lived before we moved out here. And before I moved out here, my stepfather passed away because of an overdose. And I'm not going to talk much about that, just because, there's a lot of feelings and a lot of grief that people are still dealing with, and I don't want to poke too much at that, and I've got grief of my own. But what I will say is, he was a victim of this heroin epidemic, and that's mostly why we left Ohio, other than the fact of it's in the Rust Belt and there was a lack of opportunities, there was a lack of jobs, there was a lack of safety, there was gun violence, there was drugs, there was, you name it, and it was there, and we had to get away from it. And though Oregon's not, paradise, it's not the most perfect place in the world, it's a hell of a lot better than Ohio. And so since I've been out here in Oregon, I did a year full of school, and then or a semester really, last year, and then I switched over to this thing called Resource Link because I was at Marshfield, but I switched over to Resource Link, and then I got involved in activism last year. After the Parkland shooting, I did a school walkout, and that was one of the first protests I ever organized, and it just gave me a rush for the feel of the protest and the passion and the purpose. And I organized, or helped organize, because I don't want to take all the credit for it. I helped organize a March for Our Lives rally or event that we had down at the boardwalk in March, And then I've done a couple of events since then. We did a Families Belong Together event when the zero tolerance policy went into effect and they started separating families. Um, I may renew that protest because there are still children that are separated. There are still families that are in internment camps. And we are still in one of the darkest moments of American history, so do not forget that. But I did a youth climate march, and currently that's my biggest priority, is pushing for climate change legislation and pushing to, stop fossil fuel industries as we do this large transition, because I'm trying to get people to understand we only have 12 years left. The IPCC report on climate change pointed that out. But we're not going to talk about that because we'll get to that probably in a later episode when we'll go deep into that. But anyway, so that's a brief personal introduction. There's not much else to say. I was raised, I think with a little bit more of a 21st century mindset than a lot of kids are. I think you just go along sometimes with what your parents believe. But there was honestly a time where I started to form my own belief system, and I still do. And I kind of started out my being political and kind of the anonymous field, the hacker people. And that was back in about 2014, 2015, and they had done some good things. They had helped in the Arab Spring. They had, been doxing KKKs, and that was like, all right, cool, let's, go. But then they just started being all, totally just smashy sort of revolutionary people, and it was like, this doesn't fit in the 21st century. This isn't how we do things. We're not even being smart about it anymore. And so I never really even got involved with Anonymous. I've never hacked a day in my life, and not to bag on Anonymous, they may be doing good things now. I don't think that the stigma on them is as bad as some people say it is, but I'm not involved. So I started to actually get involved and start thinking and start, caring about politics. And when I did, I started to drift more towards the progressive Bernie mindset. And I feel that that's what a lot of my generation believes. But a lot of my generation isn't allowed to talk. So, a lot of times you get told, well, you've never paid taxes in your life, so how would you know anything about Bernie's agenda, and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you're too young, you ain't never paid taxes, you ain't never done a job in your life, you're only 17, go to school. When you're 18 you can vote, when you don't know nothing because you ain't done nothing in your whole entire childhood life, because we wouldn't let you. So, and you can see I'm automatically going to have a little bit of a bias against conservatives, but I'm going to try and keep that at bay. It's just when you're on the wrong side of history, you're on the wrong side of history. So you're going to quickly figure out my perspective, but I'm also not going to hold back on Democrats or liberals or some progressives. Some of these politicians just need to be called out. Some of these people that have certain perspectives just need to be called out. And so, I'm gonna say controversial things sometimes. Some people aren't gonna like, but I'm gonna say honest things. So I feel, that's enough of a personal introduction. I kind of just went on, and we should probably get to this actual show. So the first part is, since it's New Year's Day, I wanted to start out with a look back on 2018. It was an incredible year. No matter how you look at it, positive or negative, it was a very historical year. There were a lot of events that I'm sure we won't forget for a long time. But I don't want to look back so much on the events, because everybody's doing that. You can look on any news channel, any YouTube channel, and everybody's doing a look back on the events of 2018. But I wanted to look back on the statistics. So I've got gun violence statistics, and they're from gunviolencearchive.com for 2018. And uh, that was a couple. I got the statistics a couple days before the end of this year, so it may have changed a little bit since then, but it's roughly the same. And then I have some statistics on police shootings from the Washington Post, and you'll learn that I don't always trust the Washington Post, but sometimes, it's the publication that's available. They have data sometimes, and they are convenient. So, when they do good articles, when they have good, information, I'll, um, watch them. But what I want to start with is these gun violence statistics. Um, so in 2018, there were 56,350 total gun incidents. There were 14,474 deaths. There were 27,939 injuries. There were 659 children killed or injured. There were 2,811 teens killed or injured. There were 338 mass shootings. There was 291 officers killed. There was 2,122 shot or killed by officers. There was 2,031 home invasions. There was 1,760 defensive use situations. And there was 1,582 in unintentional shootings. Now I want to give you some perspective on past years, because gun violence in 2018 was down from 2017, but it's still at very dangerous levels. And 2019 could ramp up and be just as bad as 2017, if we don't acknowledge these problems and if we don't push to reduce and prevent gun violence. And that was a large part of my activist platform this year, so that's a lot of the reason why I'm starting out with this. So it was down, the total number of incidents was down by a couple thousand from 2017, down by a little over 1,000 in 2016, but it's still up from 2015 and 2014. So that these are still scary times, people. The number of deaths is down from 2017 and 2016, up from 2015 and 2014. The number of injuries is down from 2017 and 2016, up in 2015, 2014. Number of children killed is down from 2017, down from 2016, down from 2015, and down from 2014. So that's something good to remember, is that all in all, the children shot or killed is lower in 2018 than it was in 2014. So just think about that, just to give you perspective. And then number of teens killed is down a lot from 2017 and 2016, but up from 2015 and 2014. Mass shootings were down from 2017 and down from 2016, where there was actually the most, and then up from 2015 and 2014. The officers shot or killed is down from 2017, 2016, and 2015, but up from 2014. But the person shot or killed by an officer is actually up from 2017, 2016, 2015, and 2014. And this is something that I find interesting, because I think that this coincides a lot with police brutality, and I think that a lot of these incidents are, probably young black men or black people or people in color in general getting shot by the police. So that's a very interesting statistic, that people getting shot or killed by the police is up, even though people or police getting shot themselves is down. So who should really be fearing for their lives? Just ask yourself that. Home invasions are down from every single year, 2017, 2016, 2015, and 2014. So, you know, the infamous line that conservatives like to use when they talk about their guns, and they talk about somebody breaking in their home and they got to take out their AR-15 in the middle of their sleep and load it up and go, "Hi, don't come in here, I'll shoot you." So, it's down from all those years. Now, that's not to say that it's not a dangerous time. I'd say protect yourself in your own home. I don't have a problem with that. I particularly don't think I need a gun, but if you need one, just properly secure it. Okay? Keep it up out of the hands of children. Keep it up out of the hands of mentally ill people. And if you're mentally ill, you probably don't need a gun. I'm sorry, but I'm being honest. You don't. And that's just the society and the changes that we have to adapt to. And I don't see how it's so hard for people to understand that mentally ill people should not have a weapon, especially not a firearm. But defensive use is down from 2017, down from 2016, up from 2015, up from 2014. Of course, that's another thing. That's basically the conservative explanation for guns is defensive use. You know, even though the defensive use was less than the number of deaths by quite a lot, there were many thousand more deaths than there were many thousand more deaths than there were defensive use situations. You know, sorry if I confuse anybody. Sometimes I feel like I have dyslexia, so you know, you'll have to bear with me. Unintentional shootings were down from 2017, down from 2016, down from 2015, down from 2014. That's interesting too, because you know that happens a lot of the times with certain situations like open carry or concealed carry, or you know, where people have a gun and they aren't using it responsibly and they accidentally shoot themselves or another people. So it's good that that's down from every year since 2014. Now I do want to talk about the 10 most deadliest mass shootings of 2018. And I'm going to start with the least deadliest going to the most deadliest. Now, this only goes back to 5 dead and 0 injured. There are many more mass shootings than that. Matter of fact, there was even a mass shooting in my home city of Cincinnati. Interestingly, there were no mass shootings in Oregon, but I just wanted to, you know, give you a little bit of perspective on the mass shootings of 2018. So, Robstown, Texas, 5 dead, 0 injured. Wilmington, Delaware, 5 dead, 0 injured. Annapolis, Maryland, 5 dead, 0 injured. Orlando, Florida, 5 dead, 5 dead, 1 injured, sorry. Ponder, Texas, 5 dead, 1 injured. Bakersfield, California, 6 dead, 0 injured. Santa Fe, Texas, 10 dead, 13 injured. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 11 dead, 7 injured. Thousand Oaks, California, 13 dead, 2 injured. And Parkland, Florida, 17 dead, 17 injured. And that was the deadliest shooting of the year. And because of that, I want to give just a big moment of silence to those who lost their lives because of gun violence in 2018, because I don't know a specific time frame to have a moment of silence, so I'm just going to have a moment of silence. Okay. So, that was the gun violence statistics of 2018. Now, gun violence was down, but certain situations were up. There were more people being shot or killed by the police. But there were less children being killed than in a year. There were less home invasions and defensive use scenarios. There were less unintentional shootings. So I want to get to the next part of our look back on 2018, because there were countless articles all through the year where innocent black people, innocent people of color, were either called the police on, or there were simple police brutality incidents, and there were people like Stephon Clark and like Antoine Rose that lost their lives. And I don't think a lot of us white people consider how hard that impacts the black community, that they're still dealing with these injustices, that they're still dealing with systemic racism. This isn't the world that we have to deal with, because we have the privilege to go about our lives with white people problems, with privilege problems. And I'm not saying some of us aren't struggling. I'm just saying that police brutality is a problem that particularly black people have to deal with, and that people of color have to deal with, that we don't have to deal with most of the time, unless you're female. So, hold on, this window's too bright, so I'm gonna close it real quick. Gives it got a nice little golden hue to the room. It's what I like about the West Coast. So, police brutality statistics as of December 27th, because this was when it was last updated. So there were 987 shot by the police and killed. And remember, there were 2,125 incidents involving police from those gun violence statistics. So 397 white people were shot. 209 black people were shot. 146 Hispanic people were shot. And when I say this, by the way, I mean shot and killed. So, don't get any confusion about, did they die? Did they live? These people, unfortunately, did not make it. 36 people of other races were shot. 199 unknown people of unknown race were shot. Now let's go a little bit into those demographics. The 397 white people shot, that was down from last year. But there 89 were with mental illness. That's also down from last year. 21 were unarmed. That's also down from last year. 27 were female, and that's actually up. And this is going to be something that you're going to notice as we go forward. So 209 black people were killed. That was down from last year. 28 were with mental illness. That's also down from last year. 16 were unarmed. That's down from last year. And 9 were female. And that's actually strikingly the same as last year. And I want to remind you, these were as of December 27th, so this information could have changed, and the numbers could be different by now. But when I was preparing for this episode, this was the statistics that I wrote down. So this is what I'm reading you. 146 Hispanic people were shot, and of course that number is down from last year. 20 were with mental illness, that's down. 4 were unarmed, that's down again from last year. And again, 8 female Hispanic people were shot, and that number is up. 36 people of other races were shot, that's down. 7 were with mental illness, and that's actually up from last year, but I only think it's up by 1, so it's not really like one of those big statistics that you should point out, but 0 were unarmed, that is down from last year, and 2 were female, and I don't see any, like, I didn't write down whether that was up or down from last year, but I can imagine that that's probably probably up or the same. I don't think that it was down. Hold on. Family. Bear with me on this first episode as I figure out lighting and I figure out my camera and my microphone and how I want to talk and how I want to read. Give me feedback along the way as we do these episodes, because I want it to get better. I truly want to do this talk show, and so as it goes along, just give me feedback. Now try and listen and consider it. So 199 unknown race people with unknown race were shot and killed. That number is down from last year. 46 were with mental illness. That's down. 1 was unarmed. That number actually is the same as last year. And there were 7 females, and that number is down. So now I want to get to some other stats. 612 people that were shot and killed by the police were not fleeing. That number is up from last year. 15 minors were killed. That number's down. 284 people between the ages of 18 and 29 were killed. That number is down. 368 people between the ages of 30 and 44 years old were killed, and that number is down. And sorry, I lost my place. And 76 of unknown age were killed, or shot and killed, and that number is up. Oh, and 244 people that were above the age of 45 were shot and killed, and that number is down. But interestingly, white people shot and killed was 40% of the people shot and killed, while black people were about 21%. Hispanic people were 13%. People of other races were 3.5%. People of unknown race was 20%. People that were not fleeing was 62% of who police shot. And I come from Middletown, Ohio, and if you don't know how to, if a police department doesn't know how to handle situations without shooting and killing somebody, maybe they should talk to the Middletown police chief, because they've handled a lot of situations without having to shoot or kill anybody. So I want to get to the stats for women now, because it seems that there's a trend that women just women in general are being shot more by the police. And of course, this may not be completely true. It's just that the numbers are up from last year on some things. but this is just a kind of pattern that I've been noticing, and so I just wanted to highlight it. So, 53 women were shot and killed by the police. 10 were with mental illness. 4 were unarmed. 37 were not fleeing. Now, it was a 53 women is about 5.3% of all the people shot. Now, that's not a big number, but let's keep in mind previous years and statistics there, and the fact that the number of women shot this year is up from last year, while the number with mental illness is down. So the four were unarmed. That number is down, and 37 were not fleeing. That number is up as well. So a lot of them were not even fleeing. I'm wondering how many of these situations are scenarios in which officers tried to sexually assault a woman and she refused or tried to fight off and was shot and killed. Of course, I don't know if that. I didn't look into any of the incidents, so I don't know that that happened. But just knowing, some of the gross things that people in power do in 2018 and in 2019 and in this day and age, I just wouldn't be surprised. Lastly, I want to give you a look on the states. California had the most at 114 people shot and killed by the police, which was about 11.5% of all people shot in 2018. So, if you live in California or if you're thinking about California, California, reform your fucking police, please. Also, I don't know if I've cussed at this point by this, in this talk show, but I'm going to cuss, so you're going to hear it. I'm articulate, so sometimes I may cuss, sometimes I may not cuss. It happens. Texas had 85, that's about 8.6%. That number's up. Oh, and California is down from last year. Florida had 63, which is up from last year. Arizona had 62, which is up from last year, which kind of surprises me, as Arizona doesn't seem to have a lot of population, so I'm thinking this is a real problem with the police. I mean, it is in any other state, but you kind of expect it, and it shouldn't be happening in California, and it's terrible, and that's one of the worst places for it in the United States, but you kind of expect it when there's 38 million people there. Or maybe not expect it, but you're not as surprised at the statistic. So to hear that, 62 people were shot and killed in a place that doesn't